Independent restorers know how tough it can be to go at it alone. Restoration Affiliates is a national network for restoration owners that want to connect, learn, and grow their businesses with other like-minded individuals. By providing national representation, sharing best practices, or just having experienced pros to turn to, RA is about helping independents thrive. Interested? Learn more at restorationaffiliates.com.
Hey restorers, welcome to this episode of the Restoration Today podcast. Today I am very excited to be chatting about some RIA related things. I am a huge fan of the RIA, a huge supporter, and the RIA has come a very long way in the last few years. There's some amazing volunteers like the two gentlemen on the podcast today that are really helping move the needle for restorers and for the industry. So today I am joined by Justin Woodard, who's the CEO of Woodard Cleaning and Restoration. You may have seen him on the show before when Woodard recently celebrated a big anniversary, and Vince Scarfo, the COO of Clear Team. So they are both part of the RIA Legislative Task Force, which is under the AGA umbrella, I believe. And they have a lot that they're starting to take on, and this is going to take work and commitment and volunteers throughout the industry. It can't be done by just a small group of people, no matter how hard we try. So the more the merrier in this, and working to better the future for the entire industry together. So gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Vince, I am going to toss it over to you to kind of introduce yourself first.
So Vince Scarfo, I'm out of the Annapolis, Maryland area. Like you articulated, I run the operations for a company called Clear Restoration and Pre-Disaster Consulting. We service most of the DMV, but my role today is I am blessed to be the chairman of RIA's Legislative Task Force. And as fancy as that sounds, what it means is that the team that I am blessed to be part of looks at legislation from around the country, mostly states and in some circumstances, municipalities and the federal government, and any sort of legislation that impacts our members. My team and myself read through it all and make some decisions on whether RIA should take a position predicated on how the members have felt about certain items that are impacting us. My background is that I worked in government affairs for UPS, FedEx, and General Electric. So I've got a little bit of experience here, mostly on Capitol Hill, a lot of state work as well. And I'm very fortunate to be part of the team.
Love it. Okay, Justin, your turn.
All right. Thanks, Michelle, for having me. It's really nice to see you again and to be able to talk to all the restorers all over the country. My name is Justin Woodard. I am the third generation owner and CEO of Woodard Cleaning and Restoration. We are based solely in St. Louis, and we operate as an independent restoration company servicing the area. Currently my role with RA. I'm doing a couple of different things, but in this capacity, if you know anything about what we are trying to do from an advocacy perspective, we have essentially a constellation of task forces that are all doing work that is kind of adjacent to each other, and I am acting as the chair that connects all of those different pieces of the constellation. And so I get to participate in a little bit in all of the different task forces and then make sure that those task forces are actually aligned with the priorities that we have chosen based on what our members are telling us is the most important. So part of my job is to check in with each of the task forces and make sure folks like Vince are staying on point with what we've agreed to. And then if we need to make any adjustments or we hear something different from our membership that we need to make adjustments, I work with the team at RIA with Christy and Nicole and several others to align our priorities in the best way possible.
The ladies at AH keep this all running. That is for sure. They are
no question.
Amazing. So, okay, Vince, talk a little bit about the Legislative Task Force. You know, the AGA has grown since it was started, 2019-ish, I think, is when Mark Springer started talking about it. So it started with, Ed Cross as the first advocate. Mark is now another advocate on the carrier side. And then there is this constellation of moving parts within the AGA now in these different task forces. So where did the Legislative Task Force come out of? What is kind of the ultimate goal here?
Yeah, well, when I first came on board, Matt Preston at ServPro was kind of in the space and really laid a great foundation for us. And then Vince Brockman took over, and he also advanced where we were. And then I was fortunate to be handed the reins and a really great team to kind of look at where we're heading next. And I would say, if you're an RIA member, you know that there's a storm brewing, right? The poor insurance companies are being pinched with trying to cut costs. We're trying to do our best as well. Legislators and natural disasters from all over the country are forcing legislators that have never been in the space before to start talking about the space. So over the last couple of years, we've seen much debate about what should happen as it relates to restorers and how we should respond. And we're fortunate that we are advancing to the point where we are soon to have a louder voice than we have.
Mhm.
And what that means is, like I said, on a daily basis, I receive reports from around the country about what some of the states are working on as it pertains to what we do. We then gather that information and then take it to the Legislative Task Force, and then the task force looks at it and says, okay, based on the parameters that we have from the membership and what the membership is interested in, we now have something that we should take to the board of directors to determine whether we should take action on it or not. All that information is put in the AGA, the Advocacy for Government Affairs. So any member of RIA has the ability of making a few clicks and seeing exactly what we're working on. And the website itself has a proactive approach as well. So if you're in the state of California and you want to know what's happening in the state of California, you can push a few clicks and know exactly what's happening. I've got the team and I have our fingers crossed and our toes crossed that 2026 will lend some ability for us to advance what we're doing in this space to a grassroots where local independents and the large restoration companies can get more involved in having a voice with the carriers and with legislators about what's happening in our industry.
Perfect. Okay. So, all right. So, Justin, I'm going to have you piggyback off that. Is there anything that you want to add to Vince's comments before I toss out another question?
No, I think Vince had it covered there.
Yeah, he did. Okay. All right. So I want to piggyback on what Vince was just talking about member engagement and the role that members are going to play in kind of driving and shaping the advocacy efforts and the AGA in general. So how do members need to be getting involved? What role do they play in this?
Well, frankly, the members play the most critical role. Without hearing from the members, we actually would just be, Vince and I'd be in a room, shooting the breeze, and we'd choose some random thing that we thought was interesting. But what you'll notice if you are an RA member, you will be getting surveys. There are regular opportunities for you to share what is going on in your world and what is important to you. And we send those surveys out to every single member, whether you're an independent, restoration company, or you're a franchisor, or if you're a franchisee. No matter what type of member you are, how you operate your business, you can fill out those surveys and give us that information. In addition, we are regularly engaging with all sorts of people in the industry. So our various task forces are meeting with vendors in the industry. We're meeting with carriers. We're meeting with brokers. We're meeting with all different types of people across the industry, and we're listening and asking them questions about what is happening. Right. So we get information from member surveys. We get information from all different parts of our industry through the questions that we ask. And then we are also getting direct feedback on our website. And so at any point, anyone can go into the website and just say, hey, I've got to report an issue. And so there's a report an issue page. You just go onto that place and say, hey, I have seen this thing in my business. I've seen this thing in my area, in my state. And I am concerned about it. And we take all those reports very seriously. We read every single one of them, and then we bring all of those things to the AGA exec team. We distill that down. We look for trends. We look for things that are in both camps. Right? Is there something that many people are talking about that piques our attention? Right? That's an issue that will be important to the industry as a whole, or important to restorers. But we're also looking for that nugget, that perspective from someone that is, seeing something that is insightful, something that we haven't seen before, and something we need to dig into a little bit more closely. And so, no matter what type of member you are or where you are in the country, we are doing the very best that we can to gather feedback, insights, and understand what is the most important things for us to spend our time on.
So what if there's an RA member that's, maybe they're on the AGA website kind of looking through what you guys are talking about, and some of the things you're working on, they're like, ooh, that one relates to me. How can they get involved? Is there should they be reaching out to people? Should they be interacting? What are ways to get involved beyond, here's something that's bothering me. It's like, ooh, that affects me. How can I help move the needle?
Yeah. There's a couple different ways. One, being able to at least notify and say, hey, I'm interested, right? You can do that through the reports and issue page as well. Um, the other thing that we are going to be looking for, like if we don't know, we need you to reach out in some fashion, right? And so I know Vince fields some of those calls. I have fielded emails like that and met folks in person. And I know Nicole and Christy and other members of the team field those types of requests all the time. And so the essential thing to do is to reach out in some way so that we know that you are interested. Once we know that you're interested, we can plug folks in a variety of different ways. We always are interested in having folks volunteer, right, on our different committees to be able to have those perspectives directly into the committee. But one of the things that we've had a variety of success with in the last year as we've spun up the legislative committee is that we have members have helped us get connected with people that are in the state legislatures in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And so you may not realize it, but in your local community, you likely have friends, you likely have connections that are important to help us connect with the legislators that need to hear our point of view. And so that's another way that you might be able to get involved, is just to be able to help us make some introductions. And then the final way, even if we get those in, once we get those introductions, we actually need members and restorers to share their personal experiences. The thing that is the most important when we're talking about how legislation is crafted and what goes into it is real people with real business experiences that are able to go talk to our legislators to help them write the language of the bills.
Yeah.
And so we've had RIA members that have actually helped us get connected to the right legislatures. And then we've had members that have gone and actually talked to the legislators and said, hey, here's my experience. Here's why the language that you have drafted currently would be really, really hard for us to even follow, if not completely untenable. Or here's why we propose this type of language. Here's how this impacts us as business people, and how it impacts our customers, or in this case, their constituents who have had some sort of property damage that need help. Sometimes the language that they're using is actually hindering our ability to help their constituents. And so they don't want to hear that. They don't want that to happen either. And so they're really happy to listen to us and be able to take our perspective into account.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Vince, I'm curious, what are some of the things that are on your task force's radar right now? What are some of the things you're looking at? Some interesting tidbits? What are you seeing?
Unfortunately, there's more than we would like, right?
Yeah.
There's probably the biggest is the fact that we currently are not in our own space, like we're not identified individually. So about 4 or 5 months ago, once every 5 years, the Office of Management and Budget allows organizations like ours and industries like ours to apply for their own NAICS code. And currently we're lumped in with HVAC companies and plumbers and roofers and and general contractors. So RIA had listened to the membership and looked to applying for our own code, which would be really wonderful for us because it sets us apart. And I'll give you an easy for example, right? If a natural disaster happens in the Southeast and the police put up a barrier and you can't go beyond this, there's the possibility that if we have our own code, they look at us as emergency response and they let us in. There is a lot of legislation as it relates to price gouging. And for example, there's a legislation in the state of California that says if by chance a natural disaster happens and you're responding to it, you can't charge more than 10% of what you did pre-disaster happening. Well, we had conversation with the legislators going, hey, look, wouldn't you, the wildfires that took place, wouldn't you want a restorer from San Diego to come up and do it versus me coming all across the country? And don't you think it's going to cost them to put their people up and equipment in and so on and so forth? So a lot as it relates to that as well. There's legislation in I think 10 or 12 states right now that is being debated and or has been put into law that says if an event takes place, the homeowner can cancel your contract within 5 days. And we got into conversation with some of the elected officials about, hey, you call me on a Monday, you tell me you have water damage, you cancel my contract a couple of days later, you call another restorer on a Friday. Now you find out that you have mold in the building and the carrier finds out that you knew about it on Monday, you now have secondary damage, and now they won't pay for the secondary damage. So it's stuff that we're familiar with from that perspective. Then fair wages, all sorts of different legislation that's impacting us. And the challenge that you have and the reason we and everybody else is so involved at the state level is because what you end up seeing is piggyback bills. So they'll pass a bill in Texas. Next thing you know, the state of New Jersey is talking about the same thing, and they look around the country and see what legislation's passed already. And the next thing you know, it's happening in your own backyard. So the other thing I'd like to address is to piggyback on what Justin said a little bit earlier. In Annapolis, Maryland, where I live, I read the Capitol, my local paper that tells me what's happening in my capital. You're not going to read that paper. Other restorers aren't going to read that paper. So I know what's happening in my backyard, and I know whether it impacts me as a restorer, and if so, I should speak up. And to Justin's point, there's many of avenues to get that message out. And I do think it's extremely important for folks to engage because if you were at RIA's conference last year, you heard of the hundreds of new legislation that we've looked at over the last 12 months that we didn't look at the 12 months prior.
It's a lot. Constantly new things out there. Justin, anything you want to add to all of that?
Vince, as you were talking, I couldn't help but, just be kind of reminded of this place that I've felt like I've sat for a long time. And, being in St. Louis, we're kind of in the center of the country, but frankly, we're not necessarily all that geographically close to a whole bunch of other places. And we find ourselves traveling to connect with restorers all over the country. And one of the things I've noticed is that, when you're talking about the NAICS code, we are an invisible industry, right? And I've experienced this with so many other people where we just, every time you fill out a form and you put your industry, it's never listed. And whenever you talk about, what you do, we just kind of seem to operate in the background. And, I think one of the most powerful things that we are doing here is actually, this is like giving a voice in action, right? We are getting information from restorers all over the country, and then we are using our combined financial resources to buy tools and to engage lobbyists to be able to give a voice to the restorer who hasn't had a voice and frankly has been in an industry that seems completely invisible when it comes to the broader stage. And Vince, I got to thank you for to be able to have your experience on the team to kind of know how to use those financial resources most wisely has been a really big boon, I think, for us as a whole. We're actually able to, any investment that we get into the legislative committee, we're actually able to use that money, and it goes farther because we have folks like Vince on the team that have had the experience and know how to spend that money really, really well, but then also know how to stretch it so that we can have the most bang for our buck. And to be able to give those examples about how the success that we have had, it is every single person, right? And so no matter how big or how small you are, your voice actually matters in this case. And I think it's easy to get lost in the national, federal conversations that are happening that sometimes it feels like we have no voice at all. Uh, we are experiencing something completely different than that on the local level. When we go talk to our legislators, like they listen and they take action and they make changes to these bills that benefit our customers and benefit us. And so I can't stress enough how it really is the individual in these local markets that has the biggest impact. This is a place where you can make a difference.
Well, hey, look, it's really kind of you to say all those nice things about me, but the reality is it's a wonderful team that I'm a part of. One of the advancements that I would like to tell you about is for the first time ever, we're going to have a seat at the table with the National Coalition of Insurance Legislators. Now, think about that. For those of you RIA members that have been to conferences in our space, you see the carriers up on stage all the time. When you turn that around and you're at their conferences, we may not be there. We are probably not there. So in this particular case, the National Coalition of Insurance Legislators brings 77 legislators together. Last year, they brought 77 legislators together that represented, I think, 36 states. So they manage their insurance legislation in those states. And we're going to, for the first time, have a seat at the table. They're going to hear RIA's name there. We're going to be able to speak to them about the concerns that we have at really protecting their constituents and us as restorers. So I'm very fortunate that we have a really good foundation from which we're building from, and I'm really looking forward to 2026. Especially, I'm confident we're going to. I'm confident we're going to have this grassroots program next year, which will give members a greater opportunity to engage and chat with elected officials. Hey, one other thing I wanted to add. Don't forget to ask elected officials about your own company in your own backyard in St. Louis. I'll give you a specific, for example. When I first came into the restoration space, I invited in all the elected officials in our geographical area, and I wanted them to meet the employees and come see our space. And through that, they had conversation with us about what our individual needs were. And they found us state dollars and federal dollars to train our people and buy equipment and things of that nature. So they really are there to help you as well. So don't hesitate to ask.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, what a great point.
Yeah, it is. So Vince, both of you were talking a little bit about the legislation you're seeing across the country. Are you seeing you've talked a little bit about trends, but are there any trends that you're seeing that are concerning related to bills that are coming up? Like you're seeing it pop up in multiple states. You're seeing, well, this is a place that the tide could turn for restorers or the carriers, either side of the road. Like, you seeing anything that's trending and kind of becoming a theme in multiple states?
Price gouging is a theme in multiple states. There's a debate out there now about fire chasing or storm chasing is the term that everyone's using. And in many states, they're looking for you to delay your engagement with that homeowner or that commercial business for a duration of time, maybe 48 hours. And what we've had to do is educate in some circumstances that no, we need to be there immediately. We need to board that property up. There's belongings that those people have in there, or for safety reasons to keep children out from running into a building, or the fire still smoldering, or whatever it might be, for all the right reasons. No. You can't stop us from showing up right away. Now, RIA members want to do it ethically and morally correct and do it the right way. So again, us kind of having our own NAICS code, we will be the moral standard by which we go forward. But I would say They're probably the two biggest that I see that we have a lot of conversation around.
Okay, that
Yeah,
makes
I think it's a great point, right? Like if you take it one step even more broadly, the things that we are seeing are legislators that are hearing from constituents that are concerned about consumer protections.
Yeah.
Right. And if we lump that all into one big bucket, that's actually, I look at that as an optimistic place for the RIA to engage,
sense.
because our industry is built around a whole bunch of people around the country that just want to help people out. Who goes rushing into a building that after it's, partially burned down to like save, priceless homeowner possessions? Like that's what we do, right? Who goes out in the middle of the night and cleans up sewer backups that just to help out other people that are having a really, really bad day? That's what we do. And so being on the side of consumer protection and being on the side of what is best for the customer is this place that we already exist. And so all we have to do is talk about how we, on a daily basis, help out our customers, and the folks will be able to craft language that supports consumer protection, and it supports the restorers out there that are trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, one of you give a pitch for how people can get involved. You can go, I know you can go to restorationindustry.org and click on advocacy. What else? How can people get involved? Like your direct pitch here.
Oh, I mean, let me start with it's the easiest one. We need some money. Come on, Michelle.
All
Like
right.
when you're talking about the RA, for the most part, what we talk about is making a donation. We're a non-for-profit, right? Like in this case, it's a little bit different. In order to use money to lobby and in order to use money to engage folks in this way, we actually need investments, right? And so we look at it a little bit differently, and that those investments go a long way. And so if we are looking across the membership, if you want to be able to get involved, but you are running your business on a day-to-day basis, and you can't get away, or you are too far away from the state capitol to maybe make that trip, or you've got too many jobs going on, one of the things that you can do is you can make an investment with your financial resources into the legislative committee, and we promised we were going to do that. We're going to use that money to the best of our ability to lobby for the right bills that you have already said are the most important, and to be able to purchase the correct tools. I mean, if you think about it, Michelle, imagine the piece of software that is needed in order to look across all of the states and process through all of the legislation that is proposed. I mean, all the stuff that passes is too much to even go through, right? And we need to look through all the proposed stuff. And then we need to have tools to help us craft really, really strong language that supports taking care of the customer and protects the restorer. And so I'll let Vince off the hook. I'll make the pitch for the money, because we could definitely use some financial investment, because this stuff is not inexpensive, and every dollar really helps out, and will go to serve our membership as best as possible.
Perfect.
My direct ask would be for each person that reads or watches or hears this podcast to go to their calendars immediately, look at your next 2 weeks, find 30 minutes on your calendar, block it out, and say, I'm going to look at RIA's AGA website. I'm going to block it out. I'm going to read, because if you're like me, you have zero bandwidth to do anything other than your day job.
Yeah.
And I believe that probably most of us stick our heads in the sand and go, it's not going to happen to me. Like it's happening in California and Florida, New York, but it's not happening in Maryland. And then when you read about what is happening and you look at some of the legislation that's being proposed around the country, and you look at what some of the carriers and legislators are doing, you're like, holy moly, that's coming my way. Maybe I really should do something. And it's pretty daggone easy to do. It's just speaking up. And if you find a passion, Nicole and Christy have done a great job at pushing again, like I said earlier, you push a couple buttons on the website and off goes a letter to your elected official or an email, or you can make a phone call for us, or to Justin's point earlier, there might be a parent on the same soccer team as your child that's an elected official. I mean, we're not talking about federal folks that are engaged months of the year. We're talking about people that are engaged a couple months a year that you're trying to meet with. So I agree. It does take money to move this machine, and going to these conferences and having a voice and getting people to meet at the state level requires an investment. But my ask of y'all is to take the time, just take a half hour, read the website, look at what the team is involved in, and see if it makes sense to you.
Perfect. Good job, gentlemen. Okay, all right. Restorationindustry.org. Look under the advocacy tab to find out more there. If you're not an RIA member, become an RIA member. That is low-hanging fruit. It is not that expensive to join. You are going to be in great company with some amazing independents and larger restoration companies and franchises across the country. It is a wonderful place to be. I feel like the membership dues get paid back tenfold now with all the resources that are out there between the vendors that provide discounts and all of the position papers that you can use when you're getting pushback maybe from an adjuster. Now the advocacy hub and like the legislative affairs, there's just so many ways that you're going to get your investment back tenfold. So, all right, gentlemen, any final comments before we wrap it up?
Get involved, because if you don't, somebody else is gonna pave your journey for you. So if you're not involved, then you're gonna get what you get, and don't get upset.
Get what you get and you don't throw a fit. That's what my kids would say.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I do. I want to make a plea out there for the other independent folks that are around the country.
Yeah.
I think there is sometimes it feels like or seems like the RIA is really just looking at very big companies, and they're, we're doing things just to benefit large companies. And from a relatively small company in St. Louis, what I can tell you is that I see a group of people that are coming together and taking into account perspectives from all different parts of the industry, from restorers all over the country of all different sizes. And one of the things that is, I believe, very is hard to argue when we're talking about the legislative things that are happening. When state laws get passed, they actually impact all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And if a law gets passed in your state that we would fall into, that a customer could revoke our contract within 5 days, we all know what the average length of time for a water damage claim is. We are in, out, all of our costs have been incurred, and we have cleaned everything up, and we have essentially zero leverage besides maybe that lien on that property to be able to get paid. And if a customer has the right to cancel that contract within 5 days, and it is a law, it doesn't matter how big or how small your company is, you are not getting paid for that job. And that is that's a situation that we can avoid. Every single person that we have talked to about a piece of legislation like this understands that having an emergency clause that allows this, to not fall into this piece of legislation is a very reasonable ask, and it actually helps protect constituents and their properties from further damage, so that we can actually do our work. And so the plea I would make is try to suspend some of the, maybe the experiences or the judgments you've had in the past, and look towards something new that is going on at the RIA. The legislative committee is still, just about a year and a bit old. We are on the upswing of investment, of engaging people and engaging legislators all around the country. And I think we're just on the very tip of what we will be able to accomplish when we get more people engaged. Looking forward to having and working with everybody that is interested.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen. Well, for people who are listening, this is not the last time we're going to be having an advocacy podcast. To look for Vince and Justin to be back and talking about other updates and what they're working on in the future. And be sure to check out the updates on the RIA website. Gentlemen, thank you so much for all of your efforts, your time, the time donation that comes into being part of the RIA and the AGA and all of that. Thank you both for all of your efforts.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, Michelle.
For more Restoration Today and the latest news, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, and find the latest episodes of the Restoration Today podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.